People often wonder, what's so good about the Monroe Doctrine anyways? It's just a piece of paper. Then why is it so famous and important? Why do we even learn about it in class? There must be a significant reason behind it. In fact, there is. James Monroe is renowned for the writing of the Monroe Doctrine, and it is considered his greatest achievement. The document is most known for seizing colonization in the Western Hemisphere and how the U.S. stood up for what it believed in, independence. The writing of the Monroe Doctrine portrays to the world and society today that the U.S. was a strong nation and continues to be.
James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He was born to Spencer Monroe and Elizabeth Jones Monroe. He entered the College of William and Mary at the young age of 16 and joined the Revolutionary War in 1776. He crossed the Delaware River with George Washington and fought in many battles, such as the Battle of Trenton, Brandywine, and Germantown. James Monroe also suffered the cold winter at Valley Forge.
In the year of 1780, James Monroe resigned from the Continental Army. He then studied law under Thomas Jefferson and joined the Continental Congress. In 1782, Monroe was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. He married Elizabeth Cartwright on February 16, 1786, and his daughters were Eliza Cartwright and Maria Hester.
In 1786, Monroe started studying law at Fredericksburg. He joined the Virginia State Convention in 1788 and was elected to Senate 2 years later. By 1799, Monroe was elected governor of Virginia. In the year 1803, James Monroe played a big role in negotiating the Louisiana Purchase.
In the War of 1812, Monroe was the Secretary of State and war under President James Madison. He was then elected president in 1816. The duration of his presidency is called the Era of Good Feelings. However, this did not last long. The Panic of 1819 was a depression. The Monroe Doctrine was written in 1823.
The Monroe Doctrine was written by John Quincy Adams, even though James Monroe is credited with the document. The original idea was proposed by the British Foreign Minister George Canning. The Monroe Doctrine was presented to Congress at the 7th State of the Union Address on December 2, 1823.
At the time, Latin Americans were fighting for independence from European countries. James Monroe asked Thomas Jefferson and James Madison for advice. Jefferson said, "Our first and fundamental maxim should be never entangle ourselves in the broils of Europe. Our second, never suffer Europe to meddle with America, North and South."
Several events led up to the writing of the Monroe Doctrine. Russia built Fort Ross in the year of 1821 in the San Francisco area and claimed 100 miles within the fort. There were also rumors of European countries regaining lost colonies, such as Spain allying with France and Russia allying with Austria and Prussia to form the Holy Alliance.
There are many reasons why the Monroe Doctrine was written. First of all, the Western Hemisphere would no longer be open for colonization. The Monroe Doctrine states that the American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintained, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers.
Secondly, the United States would not participate in future European wars and would not disturb already existing colonies. Third of all, any European interference would be viewed as a threat. Americans called the threat dangerous to our peace and safety. Americans wanted to leave America for the Americans. Writing the Monroe Doctrine allowed Latin American countries to focus on building a constructive society rather than fighting old masters.
If the Monroe Doctrine was never written, then the borders we know today in South America would be borders for the original colonies. There would also be languages other than Spanish spoken. Britain supported the Monroe Doctrine because the country hoped to be the sole trading partner of Latin American countries. Before, Spain forbade colonies to trade internationally, limiting their economical power.
When the Monroe Doctrine was announced to the countries of the world, Spain, Russia, and France were affected the most. One French newspaper said, "By what right did the United States presume to tell other nations what they could do in the two Americas?" On the other hand, Americans replied, "If Europeans attempt to control the destinies of South America, they will find an eagle in their way."
Latin American countries such as Argentina, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Mexico, and Cuba were affected the most. In Mexico, revolts were led by Miguel Hidalgo. Hidalgo is known for his Cry of Dolores speech. One of the most famous lines of this speech was, "My children, when will you recover land stolen from your ancestors 300 years ago by the hated Spaniards? Down with bad government! Death to the Spaniards!"
Other examples of revolts were by Simón Bolívar of Venezuela in 1810 and by José Francisco de San Martín in Argentina.
On December 6, 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt added an extension to the Monroe Doctrine called the Roosevelt Corollary. The main purpose of the Corollary was to allow the United States to intervene in Latin American countries. At the time, the Dominican Republic owed $32 million to various countries in the world. Americans feared that European countries would violently collect these debts.
One of the main reasons why the extension was added was because the United States wanted to build the Panama Canal, linking the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean together. Another reason was that the United States wanted to help settle the Venezuela border dispute with its British Guiana in 1841. As you can obviously see, the Monroe Doctrine was the vital document in the early years of the newly formed United States of America.
Although it was not a big deal when it was first written, it is considered an important document nowadays. The most important result of the document was stopping the colonization of the Western Hemisphere, a giant leap from the Old World to the New World. In conclusion, the Monroe Doctrine was a proclamation to the world that the United States was an independent nation in the early days as well as today.